Hello and welcome to another episode of our tutorial on creating some OHLE for Train Simulator. So hopefully in this tutorial we're actually going to get our OHLE, our catenary, into the game. To do this, several things have to happen. We need to export this, we need to set up textures and materials, and then we actually need to create a blueprint. I'm not sure if we're going to do all of that in this video. We might actually do the exporting into game in another video, but we'll see how we get on. So the first thing we're going to do is to start setting up our materials. Okay, so for every single one of these objects that you can see up here in our top right window, we have to assign a material, and then we have to assign a texture to that material. Okay, let's start with the top one. It's nice and straightforward. So here we've got our materials tab. We've got no material set up, so we have to click the new option. Let's go through and set this up. We're going to use a flat view. We're going to we need to give our material a name. I'm just going to call it TRDiff, which is actually the same name as a standard shader we're going to use. Now that shader is called Train Basic Object Diffuse. It's just a standard shader that works in the game. Now a lot of this information you're going to have to read the manual that comes with the Blender exporter to actually really understand all the things. I can't tell you everything, but I'm going to show you the basics that hopefully gets you started. So we'll call our material TRDiff. We can call it anything we like. I like to call it the same as the shader that it's going to apply. Okay, so our material is called TRDiff. I also like to change a few options. I'll set this to shadeless here, just because I find it better. It doesn't affect the export at all. And now we're going to set up our textures. Now for the Blender exporter, you need a minimum of 2 texture slots. The first one you must call the name of the shader you wish to use. So our shader, as I said before, is TRDiff. So this tells the exporter that this material is using the TRDiff shader. We also need to set this to none, and then in the second slot we actually reference the texture we're going to use. So again we select new. This time we're doing an image or a movie, and then we need to select the actual texture, which hopefully we can just choose yes. Here is our texture here that we've got before. So this is our ambient occlusion map that we created. So you can see now why I named my material TRDiff, because this material, and you can assign one material to several objects, and this material has the TRDiff shader in the first texture slot, and that's purely so that the exporter can do what it needs to do. So the first slot is always the shader, the second slot is usually the texture, and you can have different shaders use different numbers of slots. Again, you need to read the manual to find out what to do. The TRDiff uses just one slot containing a texture. I also like to change a few, or you need to change a few settings on here. The mapping, well, this is the UV map that we created. We need to select to UV and choose the actual map we're going to choose from. Also, I turn off the repeating in here, so we're just going to clip the image. There we go. So now that we've set up that material and those texture, if we go to, we're in texture view, if you go to rendered view, and this is the object here that we've just assigned our material to. If we go to rendered view, you can see, when it finishes rendering, that the bolt is actually now textured in the render, whereas everything else is just plain white. So all we need to do now is go through all these other materials and basically do exactly the same thing. You can have multiple materials, so if you want different things to use different shaders and even map to different textures, you can have multiple textures, then you can set up as many different materials as you'd like to do this. So I'm going to go to my second object, go to the material, and rather than clicking new, we just select the existing one, rinse and repeat basically. Some of these I've assigned materials to before. You can see it's got a material assigned to it by just having a look. These little kind of earth icons. It looks like an earth to me, I'm sure it's not, but it means the material is assigned. So I'm just going to go through, this one hasn't, so let's assign the material. So as I say, just going through every single one, assign the materials. So I'll quickly do all of those now. I'm not going to show you that all in the video, so we'll just pause it and come back when it's all complete. Okay, so as you can see, if you're scrolling up here, every single one of these now has a material assigned to it, that TRDiff material. So let's select everything on here. And let's go to render. And hopefully, there we go. You can see it's not just a grey and white box, it is actually now a rendered object. Okay, so now we've got material assigned to everything, we need to select which of all these hundreds of objects we've got here, which of them are exported. Now you might think, oh, we want everything, of course. Well, almost everything. Now remember, right at the start we had our marker object, just a load of vertices basically that I was using to snap objects to and position things as I went along. So we don't want that to be exported, and in fact it probably would fail to export because we haven't unwrapped it and all sorts of stuff like this. So we need to tell the exporter not to export the marker vertices. Now that's fairly straightforward to do, because all you need to do when I've finished minimizing all of these is to deselect I believe the visit, or change the visibility of the object. So as you can see here, if we make it invisible, it won't be exported. Now there's a few other items as well that I don't want to export. So we don't want the actual wires to be exported because they're more just placeholders for it at the moment. I don't think I mapped out the nodes either, so just for the sake of argument, we won't export the nodes. If I can find them, here they are. We'll turn those off as well. Okay, so that's the nodes, and the wires are not going to set to export. Now the next thing we need to do is to actually create our some text files. Now again, this is in the manual. You need two text files. The first one here needs to be in the same folder. So I've got my textures folder here where I've got my AO map. Oh, you might want to know how I get hold of that map. So in Blender, there's my wrapping and our bake. If I want to save that, I can just go here, into image rather, and save image, and choose or save as if it's the first time, and choose the image you want to save as. Okay, so that's how we save our image. So these text files, this is for the Blender exporter. The first one is just a standard one. It's I've never changed this file, but it basically maps a nice short name, TRDiff, to the full shader name, Train Basic Object Diffuse FX. So here in our texture slot, when we have assigned TRDiff, the exporter will go, TRDiff, that is actually Train Basic Object Diffuse FX. Now this is because in earlier versions of Blender, the number of characters you could enter in this name was limited. So that's why you had to have these conversions done. In the later versions of Blender, I don't believe that's an issue, but it's still a lot quicker to write TRDiff than Train Basic Object Diffuse.fx. So that's the first text file, and that comes with the exporter. So just copy and paste that into the same folder as your blend file. The next file you need is a custom file just for this model that you're exporting. It has to have the same name as the blend file, so catenary underscore and then IGSXmod file 2. Let's have a look at that file. This contains custom settings. Again, there's lots more than you can see that I've got in here. And again, you need to read the manual that comes with the Blender exporter to know what to put in. Now I've got a few options in here. I'll try and explain what they do. I'm enabling alpha test mode for my TRDiff material. Okay, now as I say, try not to get confused. We've got a material called TRDiff, and we've also got this texture name called TRDiff, which is just for the shader. So this material TRDiff we've turned on alpha test mode, which basically means that in the texture, alpha or transparent areas will be invisible, okay, in game. Then you can also set the ambient lighting value. I believe setting this to 0, I think, but I'm not certain, stops the glow in the dark effect that used to occur, I think, when Train Simulator 2012 was released, which is the first time that dynamic shadows were enabled in game. So I think that's a good option to have. Finally, we need to tell it where the textures folder is in relation to the blend file. Well, the texture folder is here, textures. So in relation to the blend folder, it's just catenary blend file. It's just textures. And then I choose to specify what the main object of my model is. So my main object is 1_0500_stan. So if we go back and look at that, here we go. That's my main object. It's one of the biggest objects. I'm telling the exporter that is my main object. Again, not a requirement because it will automatically pick something if you don't. I like to tell it what I want. So you need these two files to exist. These will all be as part of the source files, as I say, so you're not going to have to do any of this. But I'm trying to explain what it's all about as we go along. Okay, so let's actually try exporting this. Now, I haven't done this before, so this could well fail. We'll just have to see. So go export, IGS, and we just continue IGS. It's fine. We'll leave it set to that. And then we just go export. It's going to think for a moment, and we'll have a look at what the results are. Well, as you can see, we've got an IGS file, so it looks like the export hopefully has worked. We've also got a log file, so let's have a look at that log file. Okay, so it's telling us that we've got the alpha test mode is enabled on this material, the ambient value for that material, what the textures folder is, and what the main object is. It's telling us that some of our object names are too long, it's been truncated. That's fine, that's not the end of the world. We should probably go back and make those shorter, but for the moment I'm happy with that. It tells us we've got 3 groups. It's tried to group some objects together, and it's grouped them by the distance. So LOD level 1, a distance of 500 meters. All the 0500 items are now grouped. LOD level 1 again, a distance of 100 meters. And our third group, LOD level 1, a distance of 50 meters. So fine detail, medium detail, big detail. Okay. Then it's done all the exports. As far as I can tell, everything's worked. There's some info in there but as I say, that export has worked. So we now have a IGS file. So the next stage we need to do is we need to do 2 things. We need to convert our texture PNG into an ACE file, and we need to make a blueprint for our exporter. Let's convert our texture to an ACE file. Now there's a tool called RWAceTool that will convert image files to ACE. You can download this on UKTS, and I think you can also, I'll try and put it up on TrainSimDev.com as well, and put some links in the video. So I'm going to run my RWAceTool. It's a really nice little tool. We just go, I want to convert a single image, and we go and find our image. There's our image, open. Default options are usually fine, convert. Should any second, just there we go. Let's have a look in our folder. Oh, there we've got an ACE file as well now. So the last thing we need to do is create a blueprint, because then we can actually export it and try and get this working in game. So let's go to our root folder and run blueprint editor number 2. I wasn't sure if I was going to put this in this video, but things have gone quite well so far, so I'm going to give it a go. It's going to be in the video. So we're running blueprint editor number 2. Okay, so let's expand through our source folder, find my OHLE, here we go, and we're going to go right click on OHLE, add new item. We're going to, at the moment we just want to see that it works in game, so we're going to make, I think it's just a scenery, standard scenery blueprint. I'm not worrying at all about making this work as proper new version, TS 2014 version of catenary with linked nodes and all this sort of stuff. We're going to give our blueprint a name. We can rename it later, but if you do it now, it saves time. So catenary.xml. Okay. So let's fill in the basic fields. Let's give it again catenary test, catenary test in the browser, so actually in the editor, we're just going to call that the same. In the category, that's going to, you should put, I think you need to put that as track infrastructure. And then we need to tell it the geometry, the shape file. Well, here's our IGS file, so we can right click it, copy as, provider and product path. So go click that, and then if we right click in here and go paste, it will put in the details that we need. Now everything else should be fine, just left as default. So if we save that, now let's actually go again. I've not tried this before, and we're going to try and preview it. Sorry about that ringing in the background. I just had to pause the video. That was a phone call I needed to take. So where were we? So we set up our blueprint, and I was about to give it a go at previewing it. So let's go File and Preview it. What this will do is basically it does a full export, but to a temporary directory. And once that export is finished, it will load up whatever it's created, and as you can see, it did succeed, so everything we did was correct. If you get any problems here, like you have forgotten to create the ACE file, it will tell you here it failed to export because there was no texture or something like that. Let me just see if I can get this lined up for you so you can see my train simulator window. Just hold on a second. Okay, so I have no idea how many frames per second this is going to record in. I've got a very old onboard only graphics card at the moment, so this is probably recording at about 1 frame a second or something like that. Let's see if I can actually get this so it's on the screen. Ah, there we go. Look at that. What a beauty she is. So it's slightly, remember we positioned our model right at the start. If you've been watching the whole series, we made it so our model is actually slightly below ground. Because it is actually aligned to the rail head in games, how it aligns. So there's our concrete block, there's our full model. I want to show you some weird effects you can sometimes get that only appear in the asset viewer. If we get very close to this, you can frame rate so poor it's hard. You can see how it's, if I just slowly try and slowly pan in, sometimes things just disappear. See how it's disappeared there? Don't worry too much about that. You can get that effect in game as well sometimes, but usually, well, commonly it's something that happens just in the preview window and not in the game. So now we've done our preview, all you need to do is actually export it. So now we go File and Export. Okay, so that's exported. So I'm now going to pause the video again whilst I load up the actual object in game. Okay, so how do we actually test these in game? I wasn't going to show you this, but I will do. So I'm going to create a new route and base it on whatever you like. I'm going to base it on my TrainSimDev route. In fact, no, we'll do it on the Newcastle York route. Okay, give it a name. I just want to show you how we actually set up the a route to actually test showing content and developer filters that you have to enable. This is exactly the same as when you want creating a route, so hopefully most of you have done this before. So let's just get this loaded up. So there we go, it's in the editor. So first thing we need to do is enable our developer filter. So we click on the little blue box, and this option appears on the right hand side, and you find your developer filter. So I am under here under Nobkins TrainSimDev. Tick that box. It will now go and oops, I ticked it twice. It's because the update is so slow. So that's to try. So hopefully what we'll find here, remember I called it catenary test, I think. Yes, there we go. So here's my catenary, and there it is in game. Wow, look at that. Let's just move that about a bit away from that icon and a scenario icon. Load it up a bit. There you can see the concrete box. That's it. Let's see if we've got some of the weirdnesses with the really close disappearing. Doesn't seem too bad. It's staying in view even when I'm really close. So yes, there you go. There is your amazing, wonderful catenary in-game all working. Just spotted what I thought was a problem with the model there, yeah, here looks like we've got some problem with textures being the wrong way around and being invisible or something like that, so I'm not sure what's going on there. I'll look into it at some point. That's probably a problem with faces being the wrong way around, so you can see it up here as well. So probably what we've got here is the faces, the normals of the object are the wrong way around, so they're made invisible. But that's not the end of the world. There's minor things to fix. There you go. That's the object in game. So I'm going to upload the source files when I've completely finished the model and this video, and hopefully you can use this to get some stuff in game. I'll probably create one more video, which is how to actually set up the blueprints for doing the proper noded Train Simulator 2014 type of catenary. Now I haven't done this myself yet, but hopefully at some point I'll get that all working for you. Once again, thanks for watching.